The time is at hand.
From the city of crackheads, just on the outskirts of Williamson, West Virginia, you're in Dark Places. I'm your Huckleberry, Junebug Fugit. I like to do a lot of hiking with my son Brandon. Been doing a lot of hiking this summer. Good times. On August 8th, we were hiking, and I was just kind of looking around at my surroundings, not really paying attention to what I was doing, trying to figure out where I was at, and all of a sudden Brandon yells, "Snake!" Right as I was stepping on a snake. I felt it moving under my foot. And it wasn't just any snake, it was a copperhead. Very poisonous snake. I jumped off and ran backward. Somehow it didn't bite me, but Brandon said while I was standing on it before I jumped off, it struck at me twice and missed. I'm a very lucky boy. And once again, the angels had my back. Shout out angels. The story was sent in by my buddy Kyle. Thanks, Kyle. Girl in New York State reports seeing two women being taken by cube-shaped UFOs. By Tim Banal. Thanks, Tim. A young girl in New York State claims that she spotted two women seemingly being abducted by cube-shaped UFOs. The strange incident reportedly occurred on the evening of May 28th as the 10-year-old witness was walking her dog along the road in a community of Lake George. Recounting the sighting to the National UFO Reporting Center, the girl indicated that she initially observed two women approximately 50 feet ahead of her on the same street. To the youngster's surprise, she recalled two white cubes appeared and took one person up and then the other person up. They both floated into the sky and disappeared. According to the witness, her dog also watched the weird scene unfold, though unfortunately the canine cannot corroborate her account. Interestingly, the girl's report also mused that the perceived women might have been beings, though she did not explain what led her to consider such a fantastic scenario. That said, in what some will suggest makes the proverbial extraterrestrial hypothesis for the event plausible, a local radio station, looking into the story, found no missing person cases nor any police activity that would correlate with the strange sighting. Another possibility, which UFO enthusiasts might posit if the girl's account is genuine and the women were not otherworldly, is they could have been returned by the craft, and, as so often happens with alien abduction cases, they never realized they were even taken in the first place. Meanwhile, skeptics will undoubtedly point to the girl's young age and dismiss her story as merely a mistaken observation fueled in part by her imagination. This week on the show, the Welsh Lights. Fire within and without. Of the many Welsh religious revivals, that of 1905 was unique, for at its heart was the preacher Mrs. Mary Jones, who, as Kevin McClure describes, could summon up miraculous lights over the Welsh countryside. Thanks, Kevin McClure. Probably the most remarkable series of phenomena ever reported in Wales were the mysterious Ingrid lights. Yet few people today, even among those interested in paranormal happenings, have heard of them. I haven't. Have you heard of this? Sorry. Or of their apparent inspiration, the visionary preacher Mrs. Mary Jones. The background to the appearance of the inexplicable lights seen around Mrs. Jones was the Welsh Methodist revival of 1905, which was led by the young evangelist Evan Roberts. Wales had long been the home of such intense and emotional revivals, involving large numbers of converts who experienced drastic, if temporary, changes in their way of life as a result. By September 1904, when the latest revival began, a traditional pattern was already well established. Since the Great Revival of 1859, when a staggering 110,000 converts were claimed, There have been important local revivals in 1866, 1871, 1882, 83, 87, 92, and 93. Packed services ran for hours at a time. But this particular revival quickly showed unusual features. Evan Roberts based his personal testimony on his alleged visions from angels and from Christ himself. Methodism is not a faith that takes kindly to mysticism or other popish traits, and Roberts was severely criticized for his emphasis on personal revelation of this literal kind. Perhaps this censure explains partly why few chose to remember the revival in later years. After all, claims of visitation from holy persona are not uncommon in Catholic centers such as Lourdes in France or Fatima in Portugal. The good Methodists of Marionetshire had no taste for pilgrimages and shrines, yet the controversial activities of Evan Roberts pulled into relative insignificance beside the wonders that came to be associated with Mrs. Mary Jones, a 35-year-old farmer's wife from Ingren, a hamlet between Balmarth and Harlech in Marionetshire, now Gwynedd. Experiences such as Evan Roberts' visions are often subjective, only experienced by one person. Consequently, it is hard to prove whether or not they really happened. But Mary Jones did more. She inspired phenomena that others could see. She experienced visions, found herself surrounded by moving lights, received messages from the Savior in bodily form, and received messages from the Savior in bodily form. She firmly believed herself to have been chosen to be the accepted medium for the spreading of the revival throughout Marionetshire. These experiences led her to commence a nightly mission in her local chapel, and soon others also began to witness lights, to see visions, and were converted. The first of many independent reports comes from the Cambrian News of January 13, 1905. Reporting her successful conversion work, it mentions that until recently, the lights she claimed to have seen had been regarded as one of her own inspiring thoughts, but that they now have been seen by others. Last week, Mrs. Jones attended a meeting at Pensorn where hundreds of people congregated. The chapel can be seen from the railway, and as a train driven by a Macanilith man was passing by, a strange light was seen shooting out of 10 directions, and then coming together with a loud clap. "Never do I wish to see anything like that again," said the driver, in relating his experience. Both he and his mate saw the light. Clearly Mrs. Jones and her lights were by now well known along the Cambrian coast, and the appearance of independent testimony attracted several journalists from respectable newspapers to the little Islaford farmhouse that lies between the sea and Talibont halt on the railway. Once there, they attempted to establish the background of the seemingly ordinary country woman. They found that, like so many others who are the center of psychic or paranormal phenomena, she had been far from happy in her childhood and adolescence. Orphaned at an early age, she was cared for by her sister. Then her sister died too, and Mary lost her lifelong faith in God. But during the first stirrings of the revival in South Wales, she underwent a dramatic, though solitary, conversion experience and returned to regular attendance at the Ingren Chapel. Gradually she became more involved. Then her visions began, and she decided to start her own daily meetings at the tiny chapel. She told Berea Evans, a Saran journalist, of her experience at this time, and accounts appear in the Manchester Guardian and the Barmouth Advisor. The first night's mission was marked by the appearance for the first time of Mrs. Jones' star in the lights. The star was heralded by a luminous arc of the character of the Aurora Borealis, one end resting on the sea, the other on the hilltop, a distance of well over a mile, bathing the little chapel in a flood of soft effulgence. The star soon after appeared, its light flooding the chapel itself. In the same articles, Evans wrote of the apparent intelligence of the star or lights, which seem to respond to both individuals and situations. The star has seemed to rest above particular houses whose roofs are thrown out in bold belief amid the surrounding darkness. When this occurs in the England district, a convert or converts invariably turn up at the next meeting from that particular house. It, the star, flows placidly on the roof of the chapel where her service is held, and when it does so, the spiritual character of the meeting is very marked. The Reverend Elliot Lewis, writing for the Christian British Weekly, records similar events of lights appearing over the houses of those who were to be converted. He stated that a Wesleyan minister in Barmouth could confirm them, and therefore everyone else should take the report seriously. As journalists arrived, many of them became witnesses to the lights and were able to publish the names and addresses of other responsible witnesses. Perhaps because he was a local man, Bria Evans was first into print. On February 9th, 1905, this account appeared in the Daily News. After tea, we had 2 miles walk to the chapel. Besides myself, there were present the Reverend Llewellyn Morgan, Harlick, the Reverend Roger Williams, Diffrin, and one other, Mrs. Jones, came in dressed for her journey. Going outside, she immediately returned, remarking, "Cannot start yet, the lights have not come." 5 minutes later, she went out, returning promptly to say, "Now we can go, the light has come." The announcement was received with a perceptible tremor by the only believing member of our company. We had just passed the level crossing of the Cambrian Railway when Mrs. Jones directed our attention to the southern sky. While she spoke, between us and the hills, apparently 2 miles away, there suddenly flashed forth an enormous luminous star, an intensely brilliant white light emitting from its whole circumference dazzling sparklets like flashing rays from a diamond. "It may be the head of a train," suggested our doubting Thomas. "No," was Mrs. Jones' reply. "It is too high for that." As though in corroboration, the star made a sudden jump toward the mountains, returning almost immediately to its original position, and then rushing at an immense speed straight for us. Then came the unmistakable rumbling of the train approaching from the direction of Barmouth. "I thought it was a train," came with a sigh of relief from our unbeliever. "False hope." "No," was Mrs. Jones' confident contradiction. "The train light has yet to come." And a second light, very different in character from the first, became perceptible some distance below the star, both obviously rushing toward us. As the train drew nearer, the star disappeared. With a rush and a roar, the train was passed. But before our Thomas's sigh of thanks at the disappearance of the star was well out, the star reappeared nearer, and, if possible, more brilliant than ever, then vanished. "Wait," said Mrs. Jones. In a moment, high up on the hillside, quite 2 miles away from where the star had been a moment previously, a light again flashed out, illuminating the heather as if bathed in brilliant sunshine. Again it vanished, only again to reappear a mile further north, evidently circling the valley, and in the direction for which we were bound. And Mary Jones's lights were to assume many different forms and elude rational explanation for some time to come. Latin or darkness? What were the mysterious lights that accompanied Mary Jones's 1905 Welsh ministry? Kevin McClure continues the bizarre tale of religious fervor and its UFO connection, and considers contemporary allegations that the lights were hoaxes. Thanks, Kevin. Most of the eyewitness reports we have of Mary Jones of England, the Marionetshire seeress, as she became known, come from local and national newspapers and articles in the Occult Review. The Society for Psychical Research produced a long and detailed report in its proceedings for 1905, but conducted its investigation by postal questionnaire. However, it is hard to see what the most experienced psychical researcher, more accustomed to seances and hauntings, would have made of the following account from the correspondent of the Daily Mirror. He tells of the journey back from a revival meeting. In the first carriage were Mrs. Jones and 3 other ladies. In my own with me, the Daily Mirror photographer, a keen-witted, hard-headed Londoner. The weirdness of that drive, in semi-darkness, at breakneck speed, by river and mountains, round deadly corners, and down precipitous hills, I shall never forget. For 3 miles we had driven in silence, and I had given up hope. It was close on midnight, and we were nearing Barmouth, when suddenly, without the faintest warning, a soft, shimmering radiance flooded the road at our feet. Immediately it spread around us, and every stick and stone within 20 yards was visible, as if under the influence of the softest limelight. It seemed as though some large body between earth and the sky had suddenly opened up and emitted a flood of light from within itself. It was a little suggestive of the bursting of a firework bomb, and yet wonderfully different. Quickly, as I looked up, the light was even then fading away from the sky overhead. I seemed to see an oval mass of gray, half open, disclosing within a kernel of white light. As I looked, it closed, and everything was once again in darkness. Who knew anything about UFOs in 1905? The same team also witnessed another form of the phenomenon, one also described by Bria Evans and the different police constable. It seemed that each night in the early part of 1905 there was a regular gathering of intrigued observers along the road by the chapel, all hoping for the lights to appear. The Daily Mirror reporter saw a bar of light quite 4 feet wide and of the most brilliant blue. It blazed out at me from the roadway a few yards from the chapel. For half a moment it lay across the road and then extended itself up the wall on either side. It did not rise above the walls. As I stared, fascinated, a kind of quivering radiance flashed with lightning speed from one end of the bar to the other, and the whole thing disappeared. Meanwhile, the reporter from the Daily Mail, having walked several miles from Barmouth Station, saw a ball of fire above the roof of the chapel. It came from nowhere, and then sprang into existence instantaneously. It had a steady, intense yellow brilliance, and did not move. It seemed to me to be at least twice the height of the chapel, say 50 feet. Suddenly it disappeared, having lasted about a minute and a half. The minutes crept by. Then 2 lights flashed out, one at each end of the chapel. They seemed about 100 yards apart, and about 100 feet above the roof of the chapel. They shone out brilliantly and steadily for a space of 30 seconds. Then they both began to flicker while one could count 10. Then they became steady again. In the distance they looked like large and brilliant motor car lights. Many reports such as these could be quoted, but are there any real clues as to the nature of the phenomenon described as stars and lights? How can we begin to track down their source? Were there real physical lights, or were they illusions experienced by the followers of Mary Jones through the power of suggestion when she told them that she could see lights? Were they seen only when she was present? Did they occur only in a small area? And if so, can an explanation lie in the fact that there is a marshland near the chapel? Might the lights have been marsh gas spontaneously igniting? So many questions. If the phenomena had in fact occurred only around the Ingrid Chapel, a number of possible explanations for what was seen and reported could have been found. For example, hoaxers carrying lanterns on the hills behind the chapel could certainly have been high on the list of possibilities. So too would misapprehension of the lights of the chapel itself, or those of the scattered farmhouse in the distance, or the distant St. Tedwall Lighthouse. Few of the conventional sources of light encountered by UFO investigators in the early 1980s would have occurred then. Car lights were rare, train lights unmistakable due to the company's steam engine noise, and airplanes, particularly flying at night, almost unheard of. However, the problem in analyzing the Welsh lights are not easily resolved. While the appearance of the stars and lights, and later of other extraordinary phenomena, do seem to have been related to the presence of Mary Jones, there appears to have been no geographical limit to where they could be seen. The Barmouth Advisor of April 20th, 1905 reported, "Last week, Mrs. Mary Jones of Ingren, the Marionetshire seeress, is conducting several revival meetings in the Wrexham district. Some of the women present at the afternoon meeting on Monday declared that they saw a light hovering over the head of Mrs. Jones while she was speaking and praying. At the evening meeting, as she delivered a very powerful address and offered a most earnest prayer, the lights were seen by a number of people at the chapel. The first was a flash like lightning while she delivered the first part of her address. A second flash appeared when she began in her address to describe the lights in the Ingren district, and a third flash was seen while she was praying. She said in the course of her address that the lights had appeared whenever she visited, with two exceptions. And now she knew that she had not been divinely guided to go to those places where the lights did not follow her. The visit of Mrs. Jones, followed by the lights, has created quite a sensation in the district. Wrexham, in what is now Clyde, is on the other side of Wales from Ingram. On July 23, 1905, about 3 weeks after Mrs. Jones had held a mission nearby, a group of young people returning from a prayer meeting at Innsbowl, near Pontypridd, Glamorgan, had a remarkable experience. They told local reporters there appeared in the heavens a very large and bright ball of fire. It had two brilliant arms which protruded toward the earth. Between these arms appeared lights resembling a cluster of stars, quivering with varying brightness. It lasted for about 10 minutes. A doctor from Tylerstown recounted for the SPR inquiry an incident that occurred on May 27, 1905. About 10 p.m. on Saturday night, I was coming home with my wife when she drew my attention to a bright light over the Libernus Chapel toward the side of the mountain. It appeared as a ball of fire about the size of a cheese plate. It was perfectly fixed. As soon as I saw it, I marked its position in order to be sure that it could not be someone with a light on the road which passes over the mountain, but its position was far enough away from the road. Meanwhile, in April 1905, 3 clergymen from the Llangollen area gave the Barmouth Advisor the results of their own investigations. The 3 had watched the part of the Dee Valley where Mary Jones claimed lights had appeared over the homes of those who were spiritually troubled. They saw 2 large balls of fire rise from the earth and suddenly burst luridly. On the third occasion, a similar light traveling toward Light, were satisfied that some mysterious phenomenon had appeared in their midst simultaneously with the visit of the seeress, together with the many other calm and responsible reports from witnesses all over Wales. It makes a solid case for a genuine mystery. Hoax, misapprehension, illusion, or natural explanation seem particularly unlikely here. Newspapers have hinted that there was a UFO connection, and the links between the revival phenomena and other well-established paranormal events seem clear enough. The following piece from the Occult Review hints at the scope of what is involved. The bedroom of an exceptionally intelligent young woman in the neighborhood has been visited 3 times in succession by a man dressed in black, whose appearance corresponds with that of the devil, seen by Mrs. Jones. This figure has delivered a message to the girl, which, however, in Brightsrugg, a similar apparition was seen simultaneously from different standpoints. A local professional man startled utterly an involuntary prayer. Immediately, one of Mrs. Jones' mysterious lights appeared above, a white ray darting from it, which pierced the figure, which thereupon vanished, an apparition appearing first as a man, then transforming itself into a large black dog, was seen in Abergwy a mining center not far distant. A fading star. While mysterious lights flashed and hovered around Mary Jones, other strange events were reported in the Ingram area. Coincidence? Or, asks Kevin McClure, were all the phenomena projections from Mrs. Jones? Thanks, Kevin. The lights associated with Mary Jones in 1905 were not the first to be seen in the northwestern part of Wales. The Barmouth Advisor found this account in a geography of Wales published in about 1800. 'Tis creditably reported that in the year 1692 a fiery exaltation was seen to cross the sea and set fire to the ricks of hay, corn, and barns near Harlech, and to infect the grass, but was not mischievous to men, though they were in the midst of it. It proceeded in the night from the same place for some months, commonly on Saturdays or Sundays. The only remedy to extinguish or drive it away was to sound horns or trumpets, or to discharge guns. The Reverend Friar, who conducted the inquiry for the Society for Psychical Research, found similar, though less dramatic, reports of blue or white lights in 1869, 1875, and 1877 at points along the Caribbean coast. Perhaps if the contemporary investigations into the lights had been more thorough, we might now be able to say what really happened in 1905. The investigations that did take place were far from adequate, though the problems that the phenomena presented were many. How do you catch, or measure, or analyze a flying light? As it is, we can only consider how trustworthy the witnesses were, and look for common features in their reports. The Daily Mail sent a Mr. Redwood, the son of a famous scientist, to investigate. He set up some sort of instrument capable of being influenced by the extraordinary electrical condition of the atmosphere, about a mile from the Ingram Chapel. Unfortunately, despite several hours waiting in heavy rain, he recorded no positive results, save for a sudden onslaught by two other observers who, believing the light from his lantern to be miraculous, rushed up and took a photograph of it. But a local man had warned him before his experiments. You won't see the lights tonight, for Mrs. Mary Jones has gone away. Of the British newspapers, only the Manchester Guardian seems to have sent someone to talk to the actual witnesses to find out what was really happening. The article credited a visitor appeared on February 14th, 1905, and was entitled Fire Without and Within. After discussion of the place of the lights in the current religious revival, it concluded, while everybody speaks of Mrs. Jones with great respect, a good many of her neighbors smile when the lights are mentioned. They have not seen them, though they are always sweeping the heavens with their eyes. One man saw two arc-like lights one night which were neither stars nor lamps, but may, he thinks, have been produced in some oblique way by the rays of the moon. I have often seen Mrs. Jones driving to revival meetings, said the same man, but I have never seen any lights attending her. A woman who thoroughly believes in the lights says she saw a large star one evening as she was going into chapel, nearly as big as the moon. Well, not quite so big, and a bluish color. It had disappeared when she came out of the chapel 2 hours later. Taking the existence of the lights to be admitted, and there seems to be an abundant evidence, it may be hoped that some competent inquiry will be directed to their cause. As against the purely physical character of the lights, they are said at the same time to be visible to some and invisible to others. Certainly, local feelings about the lights did seem to be mixed, and some who had at first been enthusiastic about the phenomena later saw them as a liability and an embarrassment, bringing ridicule upon local people. The Cambrian News, published in Aberystwyth, came to be of this opinion. On February 24th, 1905, after reporting lights at Trilladal, it commented, "When a person sees flashing lights, he may take it for granted that he has Jim Jams. Jim Jams are really dangerous, and when he hears knockings as well, he is in a fair way to find himself locked up in a padded room. Over the next few weeks, it continued, with its criticism crowning its efforts, in verse. If these things you see and hear, sometimes distant, sometimes near, don't you seek them, don't you seek to reconcile them. They'll do that in the asylum. It must be admitted that on January 10th, 1905, the Times had reported 10 patients suffering from religious mania and already in Joint County's asylum at Denbigh. 1 or 2 show signs of improvement, but the general condition of the others is stated to be very bad. Paranormal events are always being reported, regardless of revivals, evangelists, or inquiring journalists. Generally, only a small proportion of those people who have such experiences make them public, and it must be assumed that in 1905, a higher proportion than usual were persuaded, due to the press interest and revival enthusiasm, to do so. Many other accounts of unusual events did reach investigators. The SPR inquiry discovered a clergyman who had heard a choir of voices singing a previous undocumented Welsh hymn in the middle of a deserted hillside. Various men in Montgomeryshire heard bells in a church service, the sound of singing along an empty road, and an unexplained thunderclap. A minister from Mesteg told of how a young parishioner suddenly knew, while praying in church, of the death of his absent father. An unnamed woman, probably in early 1905, is rumored to have seen a column of fire below which appeared the Ingram Chapel, apparently in mid-flight. It later turned into an eye, split into 2 parts, fell, and reformed into what appeared to be the shape of a man. A similar experience was had by an aged Welsh bard of some repute, who had been unable to forego the temptations of the tavern. He found himself in a strange land, being threatened by ravening beasts, rescued by a mysterious figure from this predicament. He said, "I realized I had seen my Savior." He gave up drinking, took up missionary work during the revival, and influenced a good many of his old boon companions. Though the visions of the converts happened in the same country as the Lights, amid the same religious fervor, and were reported in the same magazines and newspapers, they are probably entirely different phenomena, although no one today can be sure. There are many problems to overcome in attempting any assessment of the Lights associated with Mary Jones. It is now many years since the phenomena occurred. Though there are many cases, most are updated, and those reported to the SPR are often anonymous. It is difficult to assess their worth. We know little of weather conditions and other vital factors at the times the Lights were seen. Faced with possible explanations as varied as sightings of Venus, of St. Elmo's fire, of marsh gas, ball lightning, phosphorescence, fireflies, and lights of St. Tudwall's lighthouse, it is impossible to investigate further. Any of these might or might not have caused any particular incident. A holiday the author took at Tallybont, a village near Ingram, revealed few local memories of either Mrs. Jones or her phenomena. Local explanations related to men carrying lanterns in the fields and moonlight shining on broken glass. The key to any objective assessment of the phenomena lies in the independent testimony from journalists and clergymen. This does seem strong enough to support the view that genuinely paranormal events did take place. Most of them took the form of varying shapes of bright white or colored light, behaving in an entirely mysterious manner. That the Lights were seen, and that they were seen to move in an apparent purposeful manner, appears certain. As the Guardian said of them, there seems to be an abundant evidence. So if the Lights, with their paranormal behavior, did occur, or were seen to occur, how and why did they do so? Where did they come from? What directed their behavior? And where did they go? All these questions. There are no firm answers to these questions, but perhaps the best clue lies in what the lights, by their appearance and behavior, achieved. It was simply Mrs. Jones' own ambitions to be the accepted medium for the spreading of the revival in Marionetshire, and to run a successful mission in her own local chapel. The lights were the means of her fame, and the basis of the remarkable extent of her missionary work. She believed her faith created the lights, and this gave her the power to convert. But if the evidence does argue for the physical, though paranormal, reality of the lights, then there seem to be only two possible explanations. Either God was demonstrating his power to convert sinners, or some equally extraordinary but more natural factor was responsible. In short, the production of visible, controllable phenomena, perhaps constructed of some form of electrical energy by an act of conscious or unconscious will. And there we will find ourselves in the area of poltergeists, which seem to occur in the vicinity of the emotionally troubled, and physical phenomena of spiritualism. Whether or not the will of Mary Jones that could conjure up lights that would do her bidding, we are unlikely to ever know, although she continued her mission until the revival family lost its force in 1906. There is no known report of the lights after July 1905. Of Mary Jones's later life, we know little, but it seems she never found domestic happiness. Her husband, of whom we know nothing, died in 1909, and both her daughter and son died young. She continued to teach at Ingram Chapel Sunday School, and occasionally took part in prayer meetings. She lived on alone near the chapel until her death in 1936, and she was buried in the Horeb Cemetery at Diffram, where the grave can still be seen. After her hard life, with its brief yet remarkable interlude of fame, perhaps it is as well that her achievements are not entirely forgotten. So there you go, the Welsh Lights. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate you. Thanks to the crew at Nighthawk Radio. If you've got a true scary story to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the show, or send in your submission for us to read, or what have you, send an email to indarkplacespod@hotmail.com. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless.